Today on Censorship, I welcome Adnan Polat, a man who has walked away from the comfort of a thriving corporate career to step into the unknown. After years of growth and success in the world of high tech, Adnan made the bold decision to leave that safe harbor. From co-founding PageBuddy AI with his brother to building TagTalk Tribe, a community rooted in human connection, Adnan is in the midst of a powerful transition, one that blends courage, curiosity, and a commitment to keeping a childlike mindset. Hello, Adnan. Welcome. Thank you very much for coming all the way to Paris for this.
Thank you very much for having me, Stephanie.
My pleasure. Would you mind starting with introducing yourself to get us going?
Sure. So I'm Adnan. I'm, X old. And I used to work in a big corporation for a long time and just recently decided to step out of my comfort zone and to try out something new completely on my own. Other than that, what you can tell about me is that I have Turkish origins. I was born and raised in Germany. So I grew up with two cultures, if you like, and that helped me actually a lot through my whole life to accomplish challenges, to tackle certain other opportunities by taking the best out of both cultures.
Thank you. Let's start with your career path. You said you were in a large corporation, high tech, for a long time. How many years are we talking about?
20 years.
20 years.
And it was my first actual employer. So
okay.
I started to send my first application, no joke, and it turned out to be the employer for the next 20 years.
Very nice. And when you started, what did success look like? What did you have in mind that you wanted to accomplish there?
So, back in the days, I had a completely different definition of success compared to how I would look at things today. So if you would ask me, the 25 years old Adnan, I had this linear thing, like you do well at school, you get amazing grades, and you land a big spot in one of these big named corporations. And that's actually what happened to me. So I was in a complete unreal parallel universe, because normally you send a few applications, etc. But for me, it was like, I knew I will have this academic approach. I study, I do this and that, and everything worked out. But then over the course of time, actually in the first year or so, I came across something where I failed big time. And I considered it as a failure. So I wrote my thesis at the company where I used to work then for 20 years. And I was a little bit naive. So I thought I will get my contract because I worked my ass off like every other student would do. And then, the second to last day, I received an info like there's no headcount. Normally I would have need to chase this up front, but I was, as I said, a little naive. So I was there panicking, and I first realized, that was not sufficient. But, just to close the loop, 3 months later, the same department, same management came back to me and said, now we have a headcount open. We would like to, proceed with the concept you have outlined. And that's where I promised myself I have to put more effort into proving myself and to convince others. That was a completely different time. So success for me was like, whatever it takes, I would like to accomplish the task. Sometimes I was even cold-blooded, if you like. So I approached things still in a normal, strategic, business professional way, but maybe some others had to suffer from the approach that was taken. So business KPIs met, but everything else was maybe left over. And over the course of time, as I said, and I'm sure we will talk about this later, I evolved. I became mature, I guess, yeah. Partaked in different workshops where these things popped out, yeah. Search Inside Yourself was one of those moments where I realized, wait a moment. So there are certain scenarios and actions that trigger certain other things on somebody else's part. And that's how, I learned over the course of time that kind of success, I'm proud of what I did, etc. Everything nice, but there are different ways. There are more challenging ways.
That do not come at the expense of others.
Exactly.
Is that what triggered the thought process of maybe it's time to go do something else and get out of the safe harbor that this company was? Is that part of the thinking?
Not really. I think, in the big corporation that I was for 20 years, the first 15 years were absolutely fabulous. Yeah, even the last 5 years. But I reached an expert level, and it was like, a daily routine. So I wake up, I brew my coffee, I turn on the laptop, and I sometimes even went unprepared into meetings because I really had that expert knowledge level. And I always realized, that doesn't bring me any further. So I always was looking forward to do something more exciting, but I found excuses like being assigned to a project, doing this strategically nice, etc. So, and I was always stuck until this very last moment, 2 years ago, where the company, formed a bigger project team, where this was all about AI. And, I did my job as a workstream lead, looked into the duties that were assigned to us. But at that time, I realized that that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to really maybe do things that drove me in the past, like passionately take a topic and be disruptive by introducing innovations, no matter what it takes. But I learned I have to be different in approaching things. And then, this AI topic came closer. I learned from the talented people out there in the corporation about what it means. And for me, Stephanie, it felt like Noah's Ark, maybe, yeah? So you are either part of that boat and you jump on, and you can basically define the new standards of the world, or you are taken away, yeah? And hopefully it's not going to be as drastic as it sounds, but if you read certain channels, there are a lot of concerns in terms of what people can do. But that was this technology moment, because I always had a huge interest in technology, which was packing me. And I'm like, either now or never. So that's why I jumped out. And, partnered with my brother. I have 2 older brothers. Partnered with him to build up this AI transformation agency.
So you were in your comfort zone, the expert level, and you needed something new to get excited about, and you're passionate about technology, so AI was your way out and your reason to jump out of your comfort zone.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like in the past, we were always like curious. I think curiosity was like the only thing that drove me from early kid age on till now. And it's always like exploring new things. Like I'm telling you, I'm actually very nervous. This is my first ever podcast with you. But if you don't test it out, how will you know?
Right.
And this is how I approached always thinks like this. And in a big corporation, I'm so grateful in terms of, what you can do. Like you are given certain budget, there are certain barriers, yeah, certainly, but you can, express yourself with the vision and ideas you have, either alone or as a broader team. And that kind of helped me, like this game approach. Like, in life, in a game console game, you have like 9 credits. Mario Brothers, jump and run from left to right, yeah. If you hit the turtle, you lose 1 credit. Fine, you start again and you learn, and all of a sudden at the end you have collected all points and you become the Super Mario. So I'm not saying that I became one, but it's exactly that kind of spirit that helped me to go through these challenges. And that's what I lost in the last 5 years. Nothing was new. So I'm not sure, I have to tell you, if this AI thing would not appear, if I would have done such a choice. But my inner feeling told me for the last 5 years, is this really fulfilling? And I was privileged. Like all the circumstances were laid out and you just have to accept it. And now it's like you don't know what's going to happen, but it's more exciting. So
you needed the jump,
yeah,
and the stars aligned,
sure.
And you did. And so you co-created with your brother PageBody.ai. Did I say that correctly?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit, what is PageBody.ai?
Okay.
What do you do?
I'm more than happy to do this. So PageBody.ai is, as I said, it's an AI transformation agency. And nowadays, if you look in terms of what's happening, the pace of technology evolution is at high speed. And there are so many solopreneurs and small companies that maybe cannot cope with this. So we would like to provide them this offer of walking them through the journey, not through just the automations that people see on our website to, save time, save money, increase revenue, etc. No, but actually more about to understand the pain points they have and how it can be done with less resources. And it's insane what you can really accomplish with AI nowadays. And tomorrow, things will even further progress. But here we are, 40 years combined of knowledge. My brother used to be a freelancer himself. I come, like he used to be an entrepreneur, if you like. I come from the corporate environment, and this knowledge combined helps us to give our customers the perspective of partnering with them to go through this journey. And we just recently launched this whole thing, and we can't wait to get more AI tools out, which our customers hopefully leverage and see the advantage it brings to them. Yeah.
So working with family, it's a big thing. Just what is it that you miss from working in a big corporation and being on your own now? What's the biggest difference?
So, and I think this applies to those who work in big corporations. I would say you were a specialist and you had a certain function, and whenever you needed some extra support on legal things, on marketing related campaigns, etc., you were simply trying to evaluate a plan, approach them, and you get the level of support if everything ties together. But this year is totally different, and it was actually very challenging for me in the beginning. So I had no clue about how sales works. In my previous role, I conducted sales knowledge management materials and what have you, worked with subject matter experts who were into this, and then we orchestrated all the content production, etc. But I never really executed it myself. And also, like building a website, nowadays it's easy, no problem. I have my brother who comes with front-end development expertise for sure, so that helped too. But the whole copyright on how to word certain things, or building your own Microsoft 365 Office environment, it's insane. And that's why I say respect to all those individual subject matter experts. So if they combine their efforts together, it's powerful. But if you go through this on your own, it's no longer like you just send a request to someone. You send on the button now and it comes back to your own inbox and you have to deal with it.
So, yeah, that's a really big difference. Is in a corporation, you have your own area of expertise and you get support from other experts. Now that you're on your own, you need to develop all of the skills.
Absolutely.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and we had a pact, Stephanie, with my brother, no matter what it takes for him to further evolve, and myself, in order to make it our, put all effort in, whatever it takes, learning, knowledge trainings, attend workshops, seek one-to-one expert support, etc. So, and we are in a privileged situation where we said money should not hinder us as long as we get what we want in order to prove our clients with whom we want to partner that, hey, we have built up expert domain, an experience. We have a certain knowledge of skill set that we have acquired over the course of time. And yeah, I think learning is actually the ultimate driver. So never stop learning, and then you can actually prove the people by just guiding them. And that helps yourself. You have better nights at the end of the day because tomorrow you have to deal with a difficult situation. And the more you acquire from others, that's great learning altogether.
Very cool. At the same time, you're building Tag Talk Tribe. Tell us a little bit more what your objective is with this particular movement.
Yeah, so Tag Talk Tribe, Triple T, how I call it, is currently just a vision. So a vision of building a network of people who like to share their stories authentically, who are interested in the opinion of others or the perspective. That's probably the better term to put it. So people who would like to feel seen, not just from a job title perspective, but more from the human behind the title. Now, for the folks who don't know what Tag Talk Tribe is, it's actually an instance or an initiative on my end within LinkedIn. So it's completely limited to that network. And, my idea is if you have, connections that would like to drive real conversations, is what I was myself looking for. Not just the posts that come and go for the likes, etc., or a recommendation to read another newspaper article, and so on and so forth. I appreciate all of those things, but who are the persons that are in my network, and what kind of value can they contribute to either me or to folks that have expressed certain challenges, and maybe I can help them get connected. And if you bring Tag Talk Tribe to the next level, that's what I did just recently. Now gaining AI knowledge and what have you, I turned it into an AI-powered engine. So I'm now in the second iteration, if you like. There are two more to come, but the second iteration helps me to document all those conversations that are happening, provide them with a promotional blog and video featuring that individual who's worth to be seen, and present it to my network. And from then onwards, the more I have, and I just recently started, so I have 50 plus people now joining, the idea is that they come together on their own. So currently it's all limited to me. I have to run the conversations, etc. But later on, I would like this community behavior to come up, where people feature other folks because they had a conversation, and all is AI powered. So there's less administrative effort to write the article, to produce the video blog, and so on. But it's more focused on promoting someone individually.
Where can people find you to join Tag Talk Tribe if they want to?
So I made some checks myself. The hashtag Tag Talk Tribe always leads to my article.
Okay.
So that was probably a wise way to name it. But yeah, it's actually one of my featured things.
LinkedIn.
And every Tuesday there comes a featured blog out. And the idea is you tag either yourself or someone else in order to receive an invite for a talk discussion. So from tag to talk. And once we talked, you get presented to the network, and then hopefully people join the tribe, and we move it forward.
Sounds great. You've talked to me before about psychological safety, and about gratitude. You mentioned earlier that these are things you started discovering in your corporate career, and not discovering, exploring really. How does that come into play in how you want to build your team and how you want to build Tag Talk Tribe? What influence do these workshops and explorations have?
Yeah, that's a good question. So let me put it that way. Psychological safety is something that was brought to my attention through both of my elder brothers. And the more discussions I had with them, the more I put that into context in terms of how I want to change myself in approaching business tasks together with a team. I think this was 7 years ago or so, yeah? But the term psychological safety was not really that kind of, word that was floating around. It was more about to try to understand from where the other person is coming from. Mm-hmm. And there was this moment of, where your team gets joined by others, and that was exactly that time frame where I was, assigned to also some other folks, different age, and all of a sudden I realized maybe the pace that you are driving or the idea you have is not sufficient anymore. So through discussions that I took advantage of with my brothers, as well as through the many workshops that the company has rolled out, I learned that you have to first have an inclusive mindset and understand that everybody is respected in a way. And once you have ensured that everybody feels belonging to the team, that's when you first and foremost can start building up something bigger. And it was those moments where I realized it's very challenging because it requires maybe difficult discussions, confrontation. But if both apply to standards, then it works out. And that's kind of the mindset that I try to apply going forward, not just in business context, but also personally, in my personal life. And I realized that all of the sudden you become thankful for the great discussions you have with someone else, sharing their perspective. And if you try to embrace that opportunity of understanding from where others are coming from, you can grow yourself by finding new patterns in order to accommodate it for both. Now, how will I bring this to the teams that I'm gonna manage? Currently, I'm not thinking about building a team because we have our little AI helpers. But certainly, it's about listening to, what we want to approach. It needs to happen all seamlessly. A client has concerns. Maybe he has some, stereotype thinking in terms of every AI agency is the same, they are just looking for the money and so on and so forth. But if we are really paying authentic interest in trying to deal with the issues they have, like you will deal with any issue in a relationship, etc., that's how serious we want to take it.
You mentioned earlier on in this conversation, you mentioned that curiosity was a major driver for you since you were a child. And it is, I think, quite a childlike mindset to want to learn always. How do you keep that mindset through the path of startup? These are very grown-up challenges. So how do you keep that childlike curiosity?
So maybe just to elaborate on childlike. So I was like the way we always, or I have to speak for myself because I don't know how others dealt with it. But whenever there was something, I always required it to test it myself. And the older I got, I was not refrained from trying out new things. Like just taking example, snowboarding. I so much wanted to do snowboarding, but I was in the early 30s, too late, for me to actually learn it. And but I still went for it. I took a course, 3-day course. I attended the course, and you were surrounded by little kids, grown-up people, etc. And then you realize, how come this kid, after 4 hours, it was a full-day training, is no longer in the group? They made it to the advanced group, and you are still stuck in there. So I excused myself by saying, okay, let's give it another try. And then you realize, by the way, for the first 3 days, I remained in the beginner group, But the thing is, I was scared of, as a snowboarder, in order to take pace and to take the turns right, you have to lean forward. And I realized, hey, this is too scary. I don't do it. So for the first time, maybe here, and there were some other occasions where it happened the same, you think so much, it's so much overthinking in terms of what you can break. So I rather did this zigzag move, and then it took me 15 minutes or so until I arrived at the destination. And that's when you realize, okay, this is not your thing, you should probably stop. But it also tells you that if you have this childlike approach and mindset, You simply try out certain things. And the more you fail, and I was even worried to fail, to break my legs. I didn't even try that out, right? So the more you fail, the more faster you grow. And especially now, and I regret it so much that I didn't take the action 5 years ago when my inner side was telling me like, hey, this is getting boring. Try out, follow your passions whatsoever. There were other dreams I had. But it happened to be AI, where we were going full throttle, no matter what it takes. Obviously, you have to pay your paychecks, your bills, what have you. But no, I wouldn't say no risk, no fun. It's like, try it out. Yeah. So if you are surrounded by great people, and I have a handful of friends, I have a huge network of professionals who keep supporting me still. And then I notice things will flaw as they come.
So lean in.
Lean in.
Fail forward and learn and
Exactly.
grow and keep going. Is that
Exactly,
your
yeah.
recipe?
Yeah, true. Yeah, you can put it in that way. I mean, there are so many other similar stories, yeah, like the best entrepreneurs failed, etc. But I think it can also work differently, yeah. Those rock stars that do it in one shot, etc. But it's exciting. You keep learning, you keep failing. If I look at my other brother, who's not part of PageBuddy, that's crazy. Like, and it's inspiring at the same time, Stephanie. So he studied construction architecture.
Okay.
Not my thing. Not your thing. He studied this a few years, yeah. Then he built up his web development agency. Not my thing. He passed it on to my older brother. That's where the connection dots come. And then he said, no, my passion is helping traumatized kids. So he reinvented himself 3 times or so and became a psychotherapist for traumatized kids. And that kind of spirit he has, my other brother had too, in a different way, and me as well. And I think this all originated through, the environment we were in. Yeah. So our father, and maybe that came and was triggered through how my father and mother, who left their home country, built up a new life in Germany in the early 70s. And for him it was clear, like, for building a new life, the kids have to get a better education, because he has not experienced any. He never went to school. He has had to study everything on his own. And but he was always someone who said, just do it, guys. So he invested in computers, which were pretty expensive back in the days. We had our first computer, the guys coded, I was testing the games they coded, etc. Yeah. So we were always attached to the technology, but it was always like this curious thing about what can we do more? Because the parents kind of did it.
That's a fantastic story. I love it. Paying tribute to your parents and by carrying on the lessons they taught you. I like that. You did mention growing up with a double culture, both Turkish and German. You mentioned taking the best of both cultures. Were there also difficulties with that particular upbringing?
Yeah, actually, initially I never thought to which culture I belonged to. Maybe up until now, I don't know, yeah. But like everybody can relate to this who is grown up in two cultures. If you visit the country of your parents, you become the German, yeah. And if you are in Germany, for some, you are the Turk. And for me, it was very difficult to cope with this. But it brought me one experience, I think. Yeah, so empathy. So when I look at it, I was always an outsider, if you take it like this, always alone. And through my childhood, I realized that the more I engage with others, I have this kind of attention to detail to spot other outsiders who walk through something similar like I did. And I made out of this experience maybe a strength or an attitude of allowing others to create space, to show the value they can offer. And that's how I tried to manage my team back in the days. And yeah, I think that kind of was shaping the person who I am now with two cultures.
Two cultures means you belong to both, or you belong to neither, and you have to
No,
find
I belong to both.
You belong
I
to
like
both.
two
Good.
cultures. I like the pros of both, cultural things. Yeah, like today I was showing up on time like a German, yeah, which is not possible in Turkey, yeah.
Right.
But on the other hand, being grateful, I think that is international, but I see this, whenever I look at my parents, everything they did was to give back to their relatives in Turkey. While they left the country and people harvest the land on their own, while my father and mother were here, etc. So what's the kind of contribution you can do? I mean, he could have built a house and whatsoever, a fortune here in Germany, but he decided to basically, ensure that we have a great education, but at the same time, he gives back to his relatives.
To his original community.
Exactly.
Wonderful. If you could talk to, the 15-year-old young Turk in Germany that you were, what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, chill. I would say, yes. Because I think in the family, and we never tested it, we have maybe this HDHS kind of syndrome. ADHD. Because we are we have 6 hours to 7 hours sleep maximum, and we try to tackle everything. So whenever I'm passionate about something, I immediately need to embrace it. That's with hobbies like snowboarding. You'd test it out first. Maybe it's not your thing, yeah? But there are so many things, and sometimes if you put it into business context, it can be so wrong. Chill, try to make a pause, breathe, try to get the other perspectives in. Because if you fail and you were stubborn, and that's what sometimes happened as a 15-year-old, you make severe mistakes. And that's what you cannot afford, the more responsibility you have. So while continuing with this childlike mindset comes the importance of taking accountability and responsibility.
What inspires you? Do you have a book, a podcast, a movie, something that really feeds your creativity?
Yeah, so, books versus podcasts. I prefer podcasts more than books. I was never a book person. The books that I keep enjoying are business books that I basically grab in order to deal with the challenge that I currently have. So things that inspired me from a book perspective was, this whole sales approach for PageBuddy. I had zero clue, honestly speaking. And then I stumbled upon this dude called Alex Hormozi, and I bought the books, studied it, and I think that's brilliant, yeah, for anyone who wants to really understand what kind of sales mechanics are available. That's your book of choice. Or, there should be more to deal with customers about how to handle their challenges. So just recently, there was a client who said, I have plenty ideas when it comes to AI automations, but I can't bring them down to paper. And then there are nice workshop tools, no longer this design thinking that we used to learn 10 years ago, but really new approaches where within 2 days you can come up with something foundational for the company and client to build upon further. And these kind of books, I think that one is from Jay Knapp, the founder of Google Meet. That was inspiring. So these were the most recent books I read, but more in terms of building my company. But when it comes to podcast, I used to like TED Talks a lot, but I took distance of it. I'm not sure if they even continue to exist, etc. They do, okay. But, there are so many other great things, like censorship,
Of course.
to name a few, but also in the context of AI and how it changed the society. So there is a German professor called Jasmin Weiss. She has a nice, insightful podcast series in terms of what this can do to the society, the impact it has. And then there are, Founders Plus AI podcast, where there is a lady who's being walked through a guy who has helped entrepreneurs to build up companies in the form of joint ventures and what have you. And he's walking her through from, on her AI idea to realization. And that's a nice thing because it's kind of tangible for me right now. But yeah, here and there I basically opt in, opt out from various podcasts. It's easy.
It is. I'll put the links in the description of the episodes for people who want to check them out. Adnan, this is going to be my last question. Mm-hmm. What can we wish for you at this point of your journey?
Oh, okay. Let me think about it. Courage, I would say. I need a lot of courage now, especially in the journey I'm currently in, like the courage to wake up on time and be passionate about what I do, because there's so much effort already put in. Courage to not take failures or pushbacks from prospects, from missed conversions, in terms of, how can I do it better? And it requires a lot of courage to go through this every time. And that's actually a big difference compared to a safe harbor approach, right? Where you failed, okay.
You're pioneering, yes.
Exactly. And how can you really do it better next time? So that's probably one thing. And maybe laughter. I wish two things, yeah. Maybe laughter, to not take everything seriously, to take the best out of it, be happy, and approach things with a smile.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Adnan, for coming all the way and for having this wonderful conversation with me.
Thanks, Stephanie.